Hello, and thank you for viewing this course on Certified Ethical Hacker version 9, brought to you by INE. During this lesson, we're going to learn about information security practices. So in the agenda for this lesson, we're going to learn what is an enterprise information security architecture. We're going to learn about security policies, security controls, and how to test the enterprise security. All right, so let's start with enterprise information security architecture. So ethical hacking is just one piece. It's one critical and important piece, but it's just one piece inside of an enterprise information security architecture. All right, and what is it? Well, it is the conceptual design of what is required for the enterprise to be secure. And it's quite simply put, it is that. It's the design of what is it that the enterprise requires and is able to do in order to protect itself and its data. All right. It branches from the general enterprise architecture, right? Typically, there should be an enterprise architecture that defines roles, processes, operations, and more from the enterprise. So an enterprise security architecture or information security architecture stems from the general enterprise architecture. It requires leadership of upper management. This is something that it's very important because some people and some companies think that security is a matter of the IT department, yeah, but it is not. Like if clear guidelines and clear direction and involvement doesn't come from leadership, then the IT people are going to be always struggling with non-compliance from users, from managers, from other departments, right? So it does require leadership. And then as its process become more specific, the IT and technical participants then get involved in the more technical aspects. But it doesn't mean that it's a full responsibility of the IT department to create a full enterprise information security architecture, right? So this architecture and the outputs of it, the different documentation that is created, cascades throughout the entire organization, and eventually it's the responsibility of everyone, no matter the position that they hold in the organization. Now, these are different frameworks and different knowledge bodies that are available to help define an enterprise information security architecture. We have the COBIT, right? COBIT is it's more of a framework for security controls created by ISACA, all right? And it's meant for commercial activities. It has an homologous body of knowledge, which is the NIST, right? The NIST has a set of procedures, National Institute of Standards and Technology, and this is homologous to COBIT, but it's to be applied in government institutions, right? We also have TOGAF, the Open Group Architecture Framework. They are more into defining enterprise architecture in general, but they have groups dedicated to enterprise information security architecture. So you can take elements from TOGAF if you're helping define a security architecture. SABSA, which is a pretty old framework, which is still there and very valid. We have ISO 27000. This is very, very popular and a very solid standard for security controls and security measures in general. And then we have the PCI DSS, which is it's a private framework from the payment card industry, but it's quite important because if you use credit cards in your business, you're gonna get audited by the PCI, etc. So all of these are super important documentation that will help define an enterprise information security architecture. Now, the fact that they are important doesn't mean that you have to study them for the CEH, okay? Typically, this is not part of the role of an ethical hacker to define. No. If that's the case, then you're probably overworked. You're being assigned a lot of workload, right? Ethical hacker typically does not get the task of creating such architectures and such policies. However, it's important for you to be aware of what they are, and even to be able to cooperate if they ask for your help in certain things. If you're interested in to get more in deep into these frameworks and these concepts of enterprise security, I would recommend you prepare for the CISSP certification. It's a very good certification to have, very sought after, and it does include all of these uh, topics more in detail. So now we're going to talk about security policies. And a security policy, it's a general management statement, and from it, other more specific documents derive. But they are important because they provide the identity of the security methodology that management wants to implement in the company. So they are an output from the general enterprise information security architecture. Okay, and they are, again, a guiding principle to elaborate other more specific documents like technical procedures, for example, based on the security policy. And it's key to an ethical hacker to be aware of the enterprise security policies, again, because the grouping of the security policies pretty much represent the direction that upper management wants to give the company when it comes to security. So when you perform your ethical hacking activities, you need to make sure that you comply and respect the spirit of those policies. And if you have doubts, you are expected to speak about them before actually executing something that might be a breach of those policies. Some examples of security policies that you might have seen in your work environment: the email use, for example, or the acceptable use security policy, the facilities access control, where things like badge or two-factor authentication for access are defined, right? The network access control, the remote access, the information disclosure policy, right? So these are some examples of typical security policies within the enterprise. Now, when it comes to security policies, there are things to consider. For example, adherence to security policies, it's sometimes very hard to achieve. So there are many means to, or there are different means to generate compliance or adherence. One of them is, of course, awareness campaigns via email communications or via management briefings, right? Another way, which it's, I believe, more effective, regretfully, is auditing. Right? I remember a place that I'm not going to name where I worked, and at the end of each month, we had to run scripts on the computer that would pretty much gather all the information of what we've been doing, including in the internet, and that is passed to an actual auditor, and then pretty much you're gonna be told if you're doing it right or wrong and what consequences that has. So security policies have to be enforced, right? Failure to comply, again, will have consequences, and the enforcement of these policies involve human resources a lot. It depends on how tight the security is in a company. Different levels of severity might be assigned to breaches in the security policy. And then even when security policies are designed to be respected, companies must make sure that they do not violate the user's legal rights, right? There is a specific hierarchy of laws, and the law has to be respected even before the private organization's statements. So that needs to remain. So next we will talk about purple onions. Oh no, I'm just kidding. No, we're going to talk about security controls, but the onion metaphor, it's really something we could use. If you look at this, it is describing a lot of different layers, just like an onion, right? So in the outer layer, you have policies, procedures, awareness, right? And then comes physical security, right? So things like your security guards are not things, right? They are people, but like your security team, like the actual armed security team. You have things like security cameras, like closed caption TV, right? You have things like even locks, right? Even batch systems. All of that is physical security, right? And it's part of what needs to be in place to defend the company. Then there's perimeter security. Okay, now we're starting to talk about network, right? So your firewalls, your IPS, and you have your internal network security. You have your host security, application security, and even data security, right? So security needs to be applied at all of these levels, and this is what is called a defense in-depth security approach, right? Or a defense in-depth approach to enterprise security. It means that we are not going to just put a firewall and say, oh, we're secure, right? No, no. Firewall is an important part of it, but it's not. It cannot be all the security you have. Make sense? So security controls that we're going to learn about are physical and technical for the purposes of this curriculum. So physical security controls are the first layer of control. If you have a super great, advanced, super powerful IT team with the ultimate technology and a lot of budget and, you know, the very, very top, right? But then you're not careful to, you know, leave the door unwatched or to give access to the racks or to the server rooms, then what is it good for? Like, what is it good for to have a super elite security team if you're careless on, you know, controlling the access to the facilities? So really, you must have a solid first layer of control. Then environmental threats that threaten. I'm sorry to be circular here, but that threaten physical security are things like fire, floods, things like natural disasters, things like even overheating if care is not taken in the data center or server room. Those are environmental threats to security, and they might be as bad as an attack. It depends on the type of attack. And then there are the human threats, right? Like war, like espionage, like corporate espionage as well, right? Vandalism, all of that, all of those are threats to physical security. And then, as I'm saying, a lot of technical control will not be worth it if you have no proper physical controls. Now, technical security controls, this is what kind of pops to mind when in the IT world you say security or security control. Oh yeah, firewalls, IPS, AAA, NAC, right? All of that, antivirus, right? So those are your technical security controls, and they require IT security specialists for proper enforcement of the security policy through technical controls. Now, the CH curricula will not teach you technical controls. Will teach you, however, how to evade them, right? Remember, we are focused in offensive security here. So, right? So there's a full chapter on evasion of firewalls, IPS, and honeypots. When security controls are breached, and truly, guys, like in the security landscape of nowadays, you need to have into account the possibility that no matter how tight your controls are, they might be breached at some point. And why is it important? Well, because you need to have some type of incident response plan, right? To minimize the damage if that happens. So an incident response team will ensure that there is a containment of such a situation. So they manage things by priority, right? And when they manage to neutralize the threat, which is of course the first thing that's needed to achieve, they will need to start notifying other interested parties. That includes people from upper management and so on. Then the output from those incidents is further used to strengthen the policies and procedures, even the technical aspects, the technical controls. Because if something happened, it's because there was a vulnerability somewhere. So the output from that incident helps strengthen the security of the enterprise. And then after the incident, some activities are performed, which include forensics, which is the actual step-by-step technical investigation on how the attack happened and also what kind of traces the attackers left, in order to then pursue legal action from the authorities, and do your best to bring the executors of the attack to respond to a court of law. Okay. Now, having spoken about all of this, let's talk about testing the enterprise security. And this is really the last topic. And even though, as I said before, this course is not about security controls or policy or whatnot, it's an important thing to know as a context for this last part, because this is where we enter, right? Testing enterprise security. That's where ethical hackers enter into the equation. So there are three main methods for testing the security posture of a company. One is the security audit. The other one is the vulnerability assessment. And the other one is the penetration testing. So how are they different, right? Well, the security audit, it's more of a verification that the different controls comply to the policy, all right? So it's more like, well, it's a lot of things. It can be monitoring the end users for compliance to certain disclosure policies, monitoring the email usage complies to the email policy, monitoring that the firewall rule sets respect a certain order and a certain guideline that was defined in policy, right? So it's verification. It's non-invasive at all, right? Then we have vulnerability assessment, which is a bit more intrusive in the sense that it aims to find holes in the security of a system, the application or network that we're analyzing. Now, vulnerability assessment, if we think about the phases of hacking, it kind of maps to the first three phases: footprinting, scanning, and enumeration, in the sense that it does all of this. It's a bit more intrusive. It looks into detail, right? But still, in vulnerability assessment, you do not take any action to exploit the vulnerability. Okay? So you generate a report, you know that these things are dangerous, but you do not attempt to exploit them and like verify that they are, as dangerous as they seem. However, in the penetration test, that's exactly what you do. And this is the value and the reason why a CA certification is valuable, because the industry has learned that it's not enough to just identify the vulnerability. Having someone who's able to exploit it and to document how it was exploited and to verify the true danger and the true problems that exist in the infrastructure. So this is the reason why ethical hackers exist, right? So pretty much you are going to be exploiting those vulnerabilities. You're going to simulate a malicious attack, and you're going to contain this intrusion to acceptable levels. The fact that you're simulating a hack doesn't mean that you're going to start destroying and defacing your company website and causing all sorts of damage. It might be common sense. I hope it is. But if you didn't know, well, the idea is that you don't cause a disaster, but you simulate an attack that is contained, right? That is not harmful. It's just performed for technical reasons to demonstrate that there are weaknesses. But aside from that, the expectation is that you don't make any damage. So a detailed report is generated on the techniques and methods which were used to exploit the vulnerabilities. So this is the work of a penetration tester. Now, there might be some debate between what an ethical hacker and a penetration tester is. For the purposes of this course, it's exactly the same. Okay. Now, having said that, pen testing, and this is something you need to take into account. Pen testing, if you want to pursue a career in pen testing, you need to eventually be able to craft your own tools. So, if you want to go deep into pen testing, you might want to, start working on your coding abilities after taking this course, right? I wanted to say this as a disclosure because this is mainly tools, and it's super useful because those are the type of tools people make for attack, but still you're going to be using tools mainly, right? For most pen testing jobs, you're required coding skills. So my recommendation to you is start working on that from now. Now, regarding penetration testing, there are a couple of things that I want to talk about. First, the blue, red, and purple. And this is an approach to enterprise security that actually divides teams into different functions, in this case represented by colors. So the blue team is like the defensive team, right? It differentiates from regular like IT security operations in the sense that this is like a very defensive team. This is like people who are constantly preparing for new attacks, and that's the type of approach they have. Then there is the red team, and this is the ethical hackers or pen testers. Okay, this is the people who are constantly attempting to breach the security. And then there is the purple team. Purple team it's a bit more of an optional concept, but it's kind of necessary because if you want to maintain the purity of blue and red, you need a bridge between them. Let me explain that. Blue team is in charge of defending. Red team is in charge of attacking. If they share too much information, then their functions are not as useful. If red team knows a lot about what blue team is doing to defend, then the simulation of attack is not going to be as pure as what would happen if an actual malicious hacker starts attacking. So they kind of have to have a division, and they cannot really communicate everything between them. So that's why the purple team exists, so that this team can collect the lessons learned from both teams and then use them to improve the enterprise security. And now let's talk about the types of penetration tests that exist. They are defined as color boxes, right? There is black box, gray box, and white box, right? So a white box testing is the one where you have full knowledge of all the internals of the company, right? Whereas a black box test, it's a test that you perform with no knowledge at all or minimal knowledge of the internals. This would be like a hacker who's trying to just on his own, without any insider information, just trying to externally attack a company, right? And of course, I mean, this person will eventually find a means to get into the organization, social engineering and stuff, but the starting point is completely external. And then there's the gray box testing, where the starting point is simulation of someone who's got an internal person helping in the organization. Like there is an accomplice to the hack, and it's someone who works for the organization, so they are able to provide the hacker with some useful information. So those are the three types of approach for penetration testing. Now there are penetration testing methodologies that are recognized worldwide. Some of these you can see here. The OSSTMM methodology, it's quite comprehensive, and it's a very good read if you want to. There is the OWASP, which is also quite comprehensive, but this is more focused on web application, right? Web application. So here it's a lot about coding, right? Because it's web application testing and web testing in general. Then there is the license penetration tester, which is a easy counsel penetration testing methodology. As a matter of fact, after you get your CEH, you can study for a certification which is called the ECSA. That's from Easy Counsel. And if you pass it and you pay for an annual membership, you get to use the title License Penetration Tester, right? Because you have learned the pen testing methodology from Easy Counsel. And then the last one I wanted to mention here, this is more relevant, I believe, in the UK. Nevertheless, it's a very important methodology, is the check methodology, okay? And then how I wish that True TV, in that time they were called True TV, would have continued and make this a series. I really wish that, and I'm sure I'm not alone with this. This is a Tiger team. It was a special from True TV, and this is a group of 3 hackers which performed the full job. And when I'm saying full job, I mean everything, from climbing to roofs and trying to enter like a thief would do, to dumpster diving, to the most sophisticated hacking attacks, against wireless and against the network and against servers. Like, these guys do it all, and they are amazing. Okay, so at least I have seen one episode in YouTube that's still there. I believe there are more, but this link will take you to one that it's there. Somebody uploaded it, and it's quite a good view. So I recommend you to see it, so you get a grasp of what a full pen testing job looks like. Well, I would like to thank you for viewing this lesson. I am sure it will be of benefit for your networking and IT security career.